Maybe start the webinar?
Sure. So first, I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. What I'm going to do is to briefly introduce myself, and then I would like to introduce some contents about this course, which is entitled Introduction to Strategy. So first, I'm Bruno Cirillo. I'm an associate professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at SKEMA Business School. If I can tell something about myself and why I'm here giving you this talk, is mostly because of my prior experience. So I'm an associate professor at SKEMA, where I mostly teach strategy and entrepreneurship, but most importantly, I would like to say that I also do a lot of research in these two domains. Specifically, I do research on the role of employee ventures for corporate strategy. So I look at strategy from very different angles, and I feel like there is a lot to say about the topic, and still a lot of research that has to be done on the topic in order to help companies improve their performance. I would like also to tell you that strategy is also something more than simply advising companies on entering new markets, for example, but also applies to individuals, like establishing career paths, so on and so forth. So I think this is a very interesting topic. Before my academic career, I have a PhD from Bocconi University. I dealt with strategy in the industry, mostly as an analyst. I was an analyst in an association which is called Confindustria. It's an industrial association gathering mostly the firms, the most important firms in Italy, and my role was that of consulting companies on their own strategy. I was also employed in the Italian clothing and apparel industry before engaging in this strategy career. So I would like just to give you some details about my research. Here are just two papers of the last that I published. If you're interested in knowing more about my research, please go on and look for those. So what I'm going to do here is to give you an overall understanding about why strategy is important. So this is the reminder of the talk. I will simply give you a motivation for you to be here. And also, let's try to define strategy. I mean, strategy might mean very different things. So I would like to give you an overall definition which is accepted from both academics and practitioner perspectives. So my ultimate objective will be that of introducing you to the course, and we will have time for Q&As if you have any. Before starting with this, I would like to remind that you can actually use the platform here to ask questions during my presentation, and I will try to answer your questions at the end of it when I will tell you we have this Q&A session. So my presentation will be about 20 minutes, followed by 20 minutes Q&As. So let me start by giving you an understanding of why strategy is important. The main motivation for me to be here giving this talk is when I look at many companies, and here I'm showing you some examples, it's clear that the decline of many top firms that are leading their own industries is because they fail in renewing the product market positioning in a right setting, such as I just posted some examples here, like Kodak in the chemical film industry. Nokia was another example. Panam is probably a not well-known example, but it's a company that was leading the airline industry back in the days and failed in the 90s. Toys R Us is a very good example of another industry where all of these are examples of leaders in an industry with the vast majority of the market share in the industry that failed because they were not able to renew their strategy. They were not able to renew the product market positioning in a continuously changing world. So this gives a motivation for looking at why strategy is so important and what can be mistaken in companies developing strategy. Strategy is very important not only for organizations of any kind, but also for individuals, managers, because strategy deals with meeting constraints by using limited sets of resources in order to reach objectives. So even defining an individual career, individual decisions, individual projects, having a strategy is really crucially important in order for reaching success. So strategy has a fundamental role in successful decision-making, and this is why it makes this topic very important. Why there is an overemphasis about this topic? I mean, an introduction to strategy might be meaningful also if you understand what are the limits of the concept of strategy. So let me just say that I'm a researcher, so what comes out of research in the last 20 years is that the vast majority of companies do not realize that they do not really have a strategy. So there are many articles, academically oriented, but also practitioner oriented, that show that companies do not have really strategies. So if I show you some example like this, our strategy is to be the low-cost provider. Well, this is what many companies would say, but this is not a strategy. This is mostly an instrument, something like a tactic within a strategy, but it doesn't define a strategy. Another example is this. Our strategy is to enter the Chinese market. Well, this is not a strategy. This is defining a tactic within a strategy, but if the company is set, decisions are taken in order to do that, then the company will likely fail. Another example is our strategy is to be always the first mover. Well, many companies would say that, but this doesn't define a strategy. So there is a really important evidence from many industries that actually many companies do not really know what is their strategy. And this gives a motivation for attending a course like this. Well, I would like to start in a way of defining strategy by going back to where the strategy tradition comes from. Well, everything comes back from the ancient ages where in the military tradition, strategy was meant to defeat the enemy by designing a set of decisions accordingly in order to anticipate the enemy reaction or the enemy actions. So the concept of strategies obviously has evolved ever since, but it's still heavily rooted in the military tradition. So nowadays, to make it brief, strategy is nothing else than giving a pattern to the decisions of an organization in order to have coherence, direction, and scope to all the actions of an organization at different layers within the organization. The main objective would that be that of maximizing the customer value. So the idea is that the decisions within an organization have to be designed, formulated, and executed in a way to be coherent and directed all toward the same scope. The scope should always be that of maximizing customer value. Of course, there might be different variants, facets to this objective, and scholars might also come with different definitions, but the main idea is that the customer value should be the ultimate objective of a strategy, which is also instrumental for the profit maximization function of an organization. So what differentiates successful companies from those that are not successful is exactly this. They are maximizing customer value as their main objective, and this brings them a sustainable competitive advantage. So a strategy is really important in order to give the organization direction by, for example, setting R&D investments, designing tactics for setting a reputation, brand image, and value in a market, but these are only a few examples, but also for positioning the organization. So the organization has to relate, to interface with the external environment. So the way it does is actually the objective of a strategy. Here, and more specifically in this course, I would like to emphasize the point that we are mostly looking at the industry side in the analysis, in the strategic decision making. So we don't really necessarily talk about positioning products, but we talk about decisions meant to position products vis-a-vis competitors, so in a competitive position. So the main idea is, as I told you, is that of understanding how we can maximize, our organizations can maximize customer value. So the main objective of the course is that of emphasizing this point by looking at what are the decisions the organizations have to take in order to keep this objective and design a strategy which is coherently oriented toward this objective. So let me try to explain this very complex topic by presenting a very simple scenario. So think of this histogram as the value which is created for a customer, the objective being that of maximizing this value. Well, a firm gains competitive advantage if it's able to maximize this value for its customer, both at a value which is both greater than the cost of producing this value, which is the total cost of production, here indicated as C, and then also superior of that of rivals. So the firm still has to be able to capture some producer surplus or rent. So the main idea is that we have to think of this in a competitive setting where companies compete to capture the same customers by providing different or similar products and services. So we can say that the firm gains a competitive advantage, which is the ultimate objective of a strategy, if it creates value for its customer that is greater than the cost of supplying the same product compared to the rivals. So in a very simple setting where we have firm one competing with another firm, we will have that the value created for the customer, the value created per se, will be everything that exceeds the cost of producing the product or of the service. Then this value is shared between the customer and the producer. So the customer will gain everything which is in between the price paid for purchasing the product and the maximum price that the customer will pay for it, which is B1. In a competitive setting, this has to be compared with firm 2. So strategy would be about designing decisions in order to win this game. What is this game? The company, firm 1, will have to design a strategy to win against firm 2 by maximizing the consumer surplus. So the company that will maximize the most will actually be the one getting the customer. But this is not the only point. So this will be the higher order condition for a successful strategy. The second order condition is that of then making profits out of it. So strategy as a second order objective would actually be oriented toward maximizing producer rent. But as you can see from this example, actually, a company cannot maximize profits if it cannot create customer value in the very first hand. So that's why we focus on creating customer value as the ultimate objective of a strategy. Well, if this is the case, then what is a strategy? How do we design a strategy in order to maximize this value creation? Well, there are two main questions here. First, given this very simple example, how can we maximize profits? And is profit actually constrained by the industry somehow, by the external environment and the internal environment of the firm? The second question is, once we understand what are the limits, what are the boundary conditions, how we can work within strategy in order to increase, to maximize this value creation, how can we actually relax these constraints in order to get some benefits and capitalize on what we create? Well, if we think of this, there are three key external influences that are actually the levers through which we can use strategy in order to gain competitive advantage. The first one is the value perceived by the customer. Strategy might actually change this perceived value by taking into place some actions in order to increase this perception by the customer. The second leverage is the intensity of competition. Companies relate with other companies in the market. The way they set the actual price will actually depend on everything that happens within the industry. So we can use this within a strategy in order to maximize the second order objective, which is that of maximizing profits. Then, for the same purpose, how do we define the level of cost within the organization? Well, this likely depends also on external constraints. So, for example, relationship with suppliers within the value chain. These are the three leverages that we might use in order to design a strategy. If we look at this, then how can a firm maximize profits? Well, there are two main sources of this. One is to look within the organization, what the organization can do well. So what are the superior resources that the organization has? The other one is how these resources can actually be used outside in the market. Can the firm use these resources in order to gain market power? How do these resources relate to those of competitors? These two main sources actually instruct our strategy formulation and decision making into two main blocks. The first one, we look at the firm strategy interface. Within the firm, we need to make sure that our decisions will actually capitalize on what we have, what we can do well, while reducing the limits of what we cannot do compared to competitors. The second one is the environment strategy interface. Everything we do has to be compared with competitors. We will compete with competitors on the same customers. So how do we relate what we do with those that competitors do? This brings a set of decisions that actually have to anticipate what competitors will do reacting to our decision making. So strategy actually starts from this. In order to have a successful strategy, of course, we have to define long-term and agreed objective within the organizations. In order to gain coherency within the organization, all the organizational members have to convey the idea that they know what the organization is about and what we have to do in order to capitalize creating market value. So we need to have an objective appraisal of resources and competences within the organization, and then have a profound understanding of the competitive environment. This will be the starting point then to develop and implement a strategy which will eventually lead to a sustainable competitive advantage. So the main idea is that with this course, I would like to introduce participants to the main strategic theories and tools in order to run analysis, in order to anticipate strategy formulation and implementation. So the course introduces the idea that by running this analysis, organizations have to find a balance between these external constraints and these internal opportunities by looking for decisions, a stream of decisions that actually maximizes the so-called strategic fit. Everything that organization does must match well with what can be done in the external context of the organization. So here we talk about strategic fit by matching the internal with the external analysis. So why this course? Well, this course will introduce participants to the basic concept in strategic management: strategy identification and evaluation, so the analysis, mostly industry analysis, as I said at the beginning, challenges to competition, and how firms can react to industry evolution. So eventually how to compete in hyper-dynamic industry settings. But more specifically, being this a basic course, it will actually introduce participants to what are the most impactful strategic actions given the constraints of the organization and the opportunities provided by the environment. So the focus will be on two different layers within strategy decision-making, which is the business level and the corporate level strategy. But I think that this is most important from my own perspective as being an academic. I think it's really important to understand how to talk about strategy, because strategy, no matter it's applied in organization or in individual careers, is also a matter of communicating about objective, decision-making, coherency in defining choices, so on and so forth. So it's really important to understand how you can talk about strategy. And so the course is also meant to report how to report strategic recommendations. So let me go brief about the pedagogical approach that I designed for this course. The main objective is that of creating a positive loop between what we know about the topic theory, applying those topics into real examples, and then engaging participants into creating new knowledge. So this is done by exploring theory and strategic tools. This is a basic course, but I think the main objective of it is to make participants aware about why we talk about strategy, why we use strategic tools. We mostly do it to solve managerially relevant problems. So we need to understand what are these problems about and then analyze solutions. So this will be done with weekly readings, videos, and discussions. Discussions will be done also on an interactive way through the SKEMA platform. The main idea then is to explore empirical context, to apply these tools. So we will have a lot of application cases with weekly mini case studies and one big case study during one of the weeks of the course, which is meant for participants to make practice out of everything that has been explored during the course. But I think the most important point is that of applying this concept. So the main purpose of the course is then to help participants apply this to a real problem setting. So this is mostly designed to explore strategic problems at an existing organizations, which might be your own organization, and then discuss together possible solutions to solve that strategic problem. The course is organized in 8 weeks, as my colleague will tell you more about. The main objective is that of introducing participants to the main topics, applying those topics to case studies, and then eventually apply on a weekly basis context into a debate session where we engage participants in critical thinking, decision making, and analysis even of real case examples. This is done in 8 weeks. The course is assigned to have no more than 3 hours working hours per week, and there are plenty of readings during each week, which are even practitioner and theory oriented. And most importantly, the course is designed in order to create a platform. There is a platform where we can debate on a daily basis. The idea is that of engaging participants into real managerially relevant problems, even by looking at real cases that come from newspapers and mini case studies. So this is mostly what I wanted to say. I guess you will have tons of questions. So I would like to receive those questions and just give the word to participants now for this Q&A session. Thank you very much. Hello, Karine.
Hello, it's a moment for Céline. Céline, are you ready?
Yes, I'm just sharing my camera.
Okay, so I'll move to your own slides. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay now. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You are free to ask any questions at any moment. We will be pleased to reply to your questions at the end of the webinar, even by email after the webinar. My name is Céline Brocard. I manage the SKEMA Open Online Learning platform, SKOOL for short. You've just watched the presentation of the course Introduction to Strategy. This is one of the 11 online courses that SKEMA Executive proposes as a new offer. As Bruno told you, it is an 8-week, 100 distance learning format, which provides a wide range of resources like courses, articles, videos, and a webinar. The 8-week course is punctuated by activities and evaluation quizzes, allowing knowledge acquisition, but also practical application through a roadmap for action or a case study in groups. Interaction and collaboration between participants is encouraged by the integration into a community of learners. The referent professor is available to reply to the questions of the learners at any time, and he hosts a final webinar for the case study debrief. Most of our online courses are rewarded by a certification, and this is the case for the course Introduction to Strategy. A final assignment is carried out to validate the acquired knowledge. The platform is accessible at any time on PC, tablet, or smartphone. If you are interested, we can provide you with a free access to the public channel of the SKOOL platform, where you'll be able to see the teaser module of each course. I can leave you my contact details. Do not hesitate to contact me for any information. We will reply to all the questions. If you have any questions, it is still time to raise it. We can reply to you now. Just do not hesitate, because Bruno is here for this, so just take benefit of it. I'm just checking if there are some questions pending. I don't see any for the moment. Maybe I can still wait a few seconds to allow you to raise the questions. Please do not hesitate.
Yeah, thank you, Céline.
Sorry, I just see Diane, you have your your hand open, so maybe you have something to say. You can write your questions on the model if you want.
I don't see the question. of the participants. Well, in any case, after this webinar, we will send you an email with the link if you want to see again this interesting presentation. I thank you for your attention. I hope you had a pleasant time and this information has been useful to you. Maybe I leave you, Bruno, if you want to say a final word. On my side, I wish you a very nice day.
You have a question of Luca, Céline.
Ah, okay. Let me check. Je vois pas la question. I don't see the question.
Okay, you're right. Hi, thanks for this
Okay,
presentation. Seems interesting. There's the online courses accessible for all the students of SKEMA free of charge.
Okay, I can reply to this. There is, as I said, you can access the public channel of the SKOOL platform. We can provide you with this free access to see the teaser of each module. So this teaser is free of charge. So if you want, at the end of the webinar, we can send you a link to this teaser. Otherwise, the online course, the 8-week course, is not free of charge. I can send you as well by separate email the description of the program with the cost.
Okay, Céline, Karine, is there any other question? If not, I probably can go back to my prior slide and give a bit more details about my module here, which might be interesting to participants. I don't know.
But we have a question of Jérôme, Céline.
Yes. The screen is short and I cannot read the question. Maybe you can read it, Karine?
Okay, I read it. How much is the cost of the 8-week strategic course?
We will send you at the end of the webinar the complete program with the cost. It's to reply concretely to your question. It's 780 euros for the inscription, individual inscription to the course.
Yeah, while waiting up, can probably say a bit more about this course outline here. But if there is any question, please, Karine, interrupt me.
Yeah.
So I would like to emphasize this. There is 3 hours working per week, which can be organized according to the participants' spare time. So there is no actually commitment to stay and attend a specific session. There's only week 7 a webinar which is planned with all participants at the same time. So during the week you can find the time to look for these 3 hours, and actually the platform is open all the week long for ongoing discussions. The basic objective of each week is to reach some learning objectives at the end of the week. So there's always a quiz that has to be performed by the participants at the end of each week that will basically test the understanding of the participant. The module can be replayed, as far as I understand, so many times as soon as the participant is well confident with the contents. There is an overall assessment before moving to week 6, where everything will then be applied to a case study. So there is a kind of routinized way to proceed week by week, where participants can work alone and then go to the platform and interact with other participants and with me, the instructors of the course, in order to increase, let's say, create knowledge together by answering questions. I would post some challenges every week, but also then, let's say, exploring topics related to the main concept or topic of the week together, even by looking at externally available information. Do we have other questions, Karin?
I will see. Not for the moment.
Okay, so I think there's probably much that can be asked. So I will just go back here and probably Celine, you can conclude.
Yes, again, thanks a lot for your participation. We hope you have a pleasant time and you found the presentation interesting. Do not hesitate to contact us. We can reply to all your questions and we are at your disposal. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.